Private individuals are installing solar panels or wind turbines as an alternative to polluting fossil fuel. Unable to make profits off of these alternatives, oil, gas, and electrical corporations are attempting to block clean energy through the American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC. As a result of campaign funded by ALEC, Oklahoma and Arizona now charge a penalty to people who have installed these clean energy alternatives. ALEC plans to eliminate state renewable portfolio standards that require electricity companies to use alternative clean energy. It sponsored at least 77 energy bills in 34 states in 2012. That included pushing the Keystone XL pipeline and barring oversight on fracking. ALEC propaganda calls people who use alternative energy free riders on the system. However, the really free riders on the system is the fossil fuel industry. Oil and gas companies extract natural resources from our public reserves, although they initially invested millions to extract oil and gas. They make billions, but pay paltry sums in taxes and drilling rights. Reuters reported on October 23, 2014, that Occidental Petroleum Corporation, California's largest oil company, posted third quarter net income of $1.21 billion. Yet, State Senator Noreen Evans, Democrat from Santa Rosa, noted California is the largest and only oil-producing state in the nation that does not tax its vast oil resources. Taxing oil and gas companies in California has proven to be unsuccessful, from the 2006 Proposition 87, the 2009 Extraction Bill, to the 2013 California Modernization Economic Development Act, which would have imposed a 9.5% tax at the point of extraction for every barrel of oil produced in California. None passed because of propaganda campaigns and lobbying by the oil company. Electrical companies have freeloaded off of taxpayers since the 1930s. It was taxpayers' money that built massive hydroelectric dams and generated electricity from the Hoover Dam, which cost $160 million, to Folsom Dam in 1955, which cost $81.5 million. In the 1930s, the federal government also began to regulate all private electrical companies to stop the greedy, chaotic system of private industry that had previously existed. Unlike private electrical utilities, non-profit government-owned utilities do not answer to shareholders and tend to pay their executive salaries that are on par with government levels rather than higher corporate executive salaries. Because they are not driven to make profits at all cost, especially environmental cost, data from the Federal Energy Information Administration noted municipal utilities offer cheaper residential electricity than private ones. In addition, they can plow more of their revenue back into maintenance and prevention of blackouts, which can result in more reliable service and faster restoration after power failures.
I'm here to tell you our story, and the community needs to decide whether this is right for you or not right for you, because it's a lot of cities have looked at it and they've made different choices at different places. And we had serious reliability issues in Winter Park, and commissioners wanted to control its own destiny, to make decisions about how the money is used and have that money be invested in Winter Park as opposed to go into stockholders. What do we see as the benefits? The local control and accountability. When you're on your own system, in our case, we have commission meetings every other Monday night. The customers can come into those meetings and they can speak. If you own your own system and there's a profit you can do what you want to with that. You can lower rates, you can invest it back in your community, you can transfer it to the general fund, but it's a community decision.
In 1996, the California legislature passed a partial deregulation of electrical companies. This allowed the private Enron Corporation to create a shortage of electricity through illegal manipulation, decreasing the supply. It caused an 800% increase in wholesale prices from April to December 2000. This led to a financial crisis that cost between $40 to $45 billion. The smartest guys in the room knew how to grease the hands of immoral politicians. According to The Economist, the campaign financing system allowed Enron to successfully lobby for exemptions for regulation of its energy trading and to draw up George Bush and Dick Cheney's federal energy policy. Because of this cronyism, the Bush administration rejected appeals from California officials for federal intervention and the imposition of price caps during the 2000 shortage. Like Enron, Alec's campaign finance of sociopathic, greedy, and power-hungry politicians, the fossil fuel industry, still are attempting to retard and stop the push by people and governments from regulating and stopping them from producing more greenhouse gas emissions. People are slowly winning against the fossil fuel industry. Naomi Klein on Democracy Now! Comments about TransCanada's CEO, Russ Girling.
Naomi, I want to get your response to comments made by TransCanada CEO Russ Girling over the weekend, speaking on ABC News to Martha Raddatz Sunday.
I think there's a very high probability this pipeline gets built. Since we started the project, the demand for it has just continued to increase. Production in the U.S. is up by about 2 million barrels a day, and in Canada it's up by about 1 million barrels a day. The need for transportation continues to grow, and the place where these producers want to put those barrels is into the Gulf Coast of the United States. So our shippers have not wavered one bit over the last 6 years. They still want this to happen, and as long as they're there, we're going to continue to push to make it happen.
So that is TransCanada CEO Russ Girling. Also, as we speak, Naomi, protesters, including members of the Cowboy Indian Alliance, are gathering outside the home of Democratic Senator Mary Landrieu in Washington, D.C. One sign reads, "Senator Landrieu, if you're not a climate denier, don't vote like one." Can you talk about both Girling and the fact that it's the Democrats now that are supporting the Keystone XL?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think what we're hearing from Girling is spin. I mean, he's panicked. This is a company that has several pipeline projects that are being blocked. They've already invested significantly in them. Don't forget that TransCanada was so sure it was just going to get an easy thumbs up that it went ahead and bought the pipe for the Keystone XL pipeline and has been having to pay for storage. So when he says he's sure it's going to be approved, he's talking directly to his backers to say, don't worry, don't panic, don't abandon TransCanada. Just today, a court injunction is going to be enforced in Burnaby, British Columbia, which is just outside Vancouver, because there are protesters there opposing an expansion of another TransCanada pipeline carrying tar sands oil that would go through that would be carrying the bitumen west to try to get onto tankers there. And it's facing fierce opposition from local people and, most importantly, from First Nations people, from Indigenous people whose rights have been affirmed by Canada's Supreme Court again and again and again, saying that you cannot have these massive infrastructure projects without the consent of First Nations people. So he's panicked, not just because of Keystone, but because several big TransCanada infrastructure projects are being legally challenged. And so he has to send that sort of message to his backers. In terms of the protests that are happening against Mary Landrieu, I mean, I think it's fantastic. I think the world is watching in horror as the climate becomes this prop in this vaudevillian piece of political theater trying to save Landrieu's rapidly tanking political career. by pushing this vote forward through the Senate. I believe it'll be tomorrow, so that she looks more pro-oil. And it's just extraordinary, and it's really an expression of the capture of American politicians by the oil industry. She's speaking to her backers. She's setting herself up not just potentially to win that election, which looks very unlikely, but maybe for what she'll do when she loses that election, which is, very likely getting a job as an oil and gas lobbyist. So she wants to be able to say she pushed as hard as possible to get Keystone passed because the refineries on the Gulf Coast want to process that dirty oil.